Following the increase of fuel pump price from 540 naira per litre to 617 naira per litre, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited reacted, describing the development as market forces at play. Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, says the problem is not a shortage of supply of products, rather the forces of demand and supply in the marketing value chain are reacting to development at this particular time. And we're going to move further looking at this very important topic of discourse. And to talk around this, I have joining me Mr. Enebi Opaluwa with BudgIT Nigeria. Mr. Opaluwa, thank you so much. It's good to have you join us on the program this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Yes, like I said, even when we discussed earlier, I said, it looks like we're having a price fixing in a market that should be liberalized. What is really happening? Why are we still having these pegs? Can you take us through what could be responsible for this?
All right. Well, it's quite simple. There isn't really any price fixing as such. I think people still think that way because of this long-standing belief that the NNPC was a partial regulator of the industry. With the PIA, that has changed. The NNPC is a market player like every other commercial oil and gas company in Nigeria. The regulator, at least for the downstream, is the NMDPRA. And like I've said to people who care to listen, what the NNPC is doing is giving prices for their own outlets, for their own filling petrol outlets. All right, any oil and gas distribution company can do the same based on their own bottom lines and the profits they intend to get from their products. So what the NNPC is doing is giving price guidelines for their outlets and saying, you located in so-so area, sell at so-so price. After they've done their computation and realizing, okay, we can get this amount from so-so quantity of petroleum products. What I think the NNPC can go ahead to do is, considering the fact that they are still a fully owned national oil company, they still owe us transparency. Now, telling us that the price has increased to 617 naira per litre, at least in parts of the country, if you're in Lagos, is under 600. You should let us know what the parameters are. What is the landing cost? What is the distribution cost you're looking at? Distribution cost will definitely vary across the country. That could help in letting us know what we are looking at in terms of the price structure of what we currently operate. The NMDPRA, as the regulator, should also do something to that effect. They are the regulator. They know the cost of freight. They know the cost of procuring petroleum products from Europe, where we import most of them from, at least where the government used to. There's a Platts price framework that they usually use, at least when they were the PPRA. So they can do some form of analysis and give us a breakdown of what should be the situation regarding the price structure of petrol in Nigeria.
But how long do you think this hike of petroleum products price, how long do you think we'll continue to see that increased trajectory, considering what's been happening across the board? Of course, some of this are beyond our control as a country.
Yes, like you rightly said, quite a lot of it is beyond our control. From the upstream segment, which is the extraction of crude oil, the crude oil price is determined by the international crude oil market, that we can hardly control. And what other countries do is that, they have domestic refineries, which allows them control to a large portion the downstream sector in terms of pricing and supply. Right now, Nigeria cannot do that because we don't have any functioning refineries. Hopefully, in the coming months, that will change. But until then, we are exposed to other parts of the world where we import petroleum products from. So, these things are not cast in stone. There are a lot of parameters. The situation in those countries where we import from, our forex market, our exchange rates, cost of production in Nigeria, a lot of things go into the mix as to what determines the cost of petrol in Nigeria right now, both foreign and domestic. Now, until we can start refining domestically, we may not be able to have complete, at least to an extent, some control of that segment. When we start doing that, then the volatilities that we experience would be not completely removed, but would be reduced, and then we can now focus on other areas like foreign exchange rate control, improving production in Nigeria to increase the value of the naira, increasing our foreign reserve. Those things will help to stabilize our naira, and then also help to stabilize the price of petrol in Nigeria.
Well, interesting stuff now, but now something comes to my mind. How attractive really is it to import PMS at this time? You know, before now, the major marketers and even the independent marketers were all out to say, we want to bring in products, allow us to bring in products. NNPC shouldn't be the sole importer of petroleum products into the country. Now they have that window, but how attractive is it at the moment? Forex is on one side, freight issues on one side, all of the issues. You are smiling already. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. So, normally the sector removing the controls, the price control mechanisms already makes the local petroleum market quite attractive to investors and people who want to import. Actually, but with every business there is a risk. And part of that risk is the macroeconomic factors, specifically the exchange rate here. Now, if you import perhaps commodities at a certain value and a certain exchange rate, and by the time they get into the country and they are sold, and then the value of the naira, because these products will be sold in naira in Nigeria, but you bought in dollars. Now, when they are sold and the value of the naira depreciates again, then you may be having limited funds to restock your product. So that is a risk that anyone who is going to be operating in this market would have to face. I think that might be one of the reasons why the pricing structure for each investor or each marketer is very important. The NNPC has pegged 17 naira is for Abuja. When the subsidy was first removed, it's jumped to 488 in Lagos, 537 in Abuja. If you understand, if you listen to what other analysts that were not in government did, they expected at least the price in places like Lagos to be somewhere around 400 naira or so, plus or minus 15 naira. So between 380 and 420, depending on the analysis you do. So there are about a 40 naira window. But if you see, when the price for Lagos was released by the NNPC, it was around 488. So what that tells me is that perhaps they're giving a buffer for any fluctuations that may occur within a short term. Now, anybody who's going to do this kind of business should be able to create that kind of buffers price to ensure that their investments are protected from volatility in the exchange rate. So I can't speak for the marketers. They should do their risk analysis, and they will know what position will be best for them to go into the market. Like I said, when data is released by the authorities, it will give us a better understanding of the risk and the parameters that marketers or investors will be playing with around this. But generally speaking, with a deregulated market where price controls are removed, it should be an attractive sector for anyone who wants to play in the market.
Well, interesting conversation. Your thoughts, Mr. Enebi, I like your clarity with regards to the actualization or implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. Now, we stayed on this for a long time. Finally, it's passed into law. A lot of expectations with regards to the sector, opening it up, attracting investments, opening the gas aspect of it, where we tend to make plenty money. But do you think we are following through to the latter, the implementation of this act? You know, the time we deferred subsidy removal for 18 months, but finally, subsidy is gone.
Yes.
Where are we at the moment with regards to implementation of that document?
So when it comes to the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, I think it is not a secret. It's quite open. Everybody, especially when it comes to the subsidy aspect, we knew that subsidy was delayed for 18 months before it was eventually removed in June this year. All right. So, but I would say the implementation has been incremental. There are certain aspects that has been accomplished. We all know the NNPC is now a limited, it's no longer, but although it's still wholly owned by the federal government, but now it's now a commercial entity. All the regulatory powers in quotes that the NNPC had has been removed and put into two new regulators. We have two regulators now, which is part of the requirements of the PIA, and letters of which subsidy had been removed, which is part of what the PIA demanded. And then we now have a template for the host community trust fund, which hopefully in coming months or as time goes on will be implemented. So we are not completely there yet, but I would say we are on track, perhaps slowly, but we are on track and making incremental progress. As I would say, it's not completely perfect yet. We had, since 1950s, a law that governed the sector. So it will take a while for some inertia of building while we implement the new law. I think some of what we've been seeing right now is quite encouraging, and hopefully, if we, at this pace and with the current administration, perhaps the PI will be implemented to full capacity.
Very good one there. Now, almost finally, what will now be your projection for the global oil market? Nigeria, OPEC quota, we see what's been playing out there, trying to stabilize prices of crude oil. Russia and Ukraine crisis is still on one side, one way or the other. It has an impact on this market. You will agree with me. So what is your projection? What is the outlook for the oil market? Because I regularly say something, I don't know if you agree with me. Now, we need oil to diversify our economy. So what do you think? What is your projection for the oil market?
So the oil market, conversations around the oil market is a very broad one. There are a lot of factors to
indeed
play. There is the immediate parameters. There are the short, the medium term. There's the long term. In the long term, we are looking at things like energy transition. But in the immediate term, we are looking at things like global inflation, the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. A lot of parameters to grapple with. But on the overall, in the near term, the oil market is still quite healthy. Oil prices have hovered between $70 and $80 per barrel, which is quite healthy. If you look at Nigeria's 2023 budget, it was pegged at 71. Oil has consistently performed at least above $71 per barrel. So I would say in the near term, yes, the oil and gas globally is still quite healthy. The OPEC Plus is doing their best to ensure that prices are elevated enough to sustain economies of oil producing countries. We have the Nigerian quota to deal with. Currently, we are doing below the OPEC quota. There are some discussions regarding reducing the quota for Nigeria, but I think that has moved on. Major producers like Saudi Arabia took the chunk of the latest cuts. So Nigeria still has a window to produce around 1.7, 1.8 million barrels per day, if I'm right, based on the latest quota. And our budget puts our production at 1.69 million barrels per day. So it's left for us as a country to try to remove leakages, remove the bottlenecks, clean up our sector, clean up the acts, and try to maximize production to the best of our capacity within this period we have. Oil prices will not remain this high for long. Russia and Ukraine will not continue to be at war for long, forever. At some point, this would end, it will resolve. And even if that doesn't happen, at some point, the world will move from fossil fuels and oil, perhaps in the next 10 to 20 years, oil will become irrelevant. So it is in our best interest for us to maximize benefits that we have today and ensure that it trickles down to every Nigerian across the country. So I think for now, we can still get a lot of benefits and revenues from the oil and gas market.
It's a good way to live it. Mr. Enebi Opaluwa is a senior research and policy analyst with BudgIT Nigeria. Thank you so much. Have a great day at work and keep up the good work there at BudgIT.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Thank you, sir.